Hey girl, what's up?
Hey.
Let's talk about it. Can we please talk about it? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Can we please talk about it? Let's talk about it.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining me in today's edition of Can We Please Have a Talk? I'm Pat Britten, your host, and I'll be coming to you weekly with things that pertain to our everyday living. Before I get started, let me say this. The purpose of this show is to present subjects that aren't necessarily being talked about, but ones we need to address. And so tonight's segment may seem a little more serious in nature than future shows, but there is an urgency to have a conversation about the state of our children. This subject was too vast to address all at once, so it's being presented in parts. What I see happening in and outside the classroom leaves me more than just concerned on what lies ahead for us as a nation. Now, you may wonder, who am I to speak on this matter? Frankly, I'm just an ordinary mother who believes that if I just speak up, maybe I can make a difference. For as a mother, I can no longer sit by and not at the very least speak on things that I see troubling us in this nation, especially on things that concern our children. However, before I unleash what I perceive as being the cause as to why things are as they are, take a look at this clip.
911, what's your emergency?
Please send someone to my house. My children are trying to kill me.
Just this week, a 13-year-old arrested in a carjacking case.
Also, juvenile murder cases are an increasing issue for police as well.
My first question is, why would a 14-year-old feel the need to have a gun?
It's a question police departments across the country are dealing with as violent crimes involving minors keep rising. WGN Investigates obtained Chicago police data on the last 2 years of juvenile arrests. It showed in 2020, 36 minors under 18 years old have been arrested for first-degree murder. That's up 35% from the year before. Most using guns to carry out crimes, barely old enough to drive, but bold enough to pull the trigger.
That's been very heartbreaking for myself and for my family, that he was taken by the hands of a juvenile.
And if you scour the data, minors were involved in some of the city's most talked about crimes: stolen vehicles, robberies, and carjackings, like the one that killed a retired firefighter outside a Southwest Side popcorn shop last December. A 15-year-old boy was among the 4 suspects arrested and charged.
Unfortunately, these are not the only crimes police are having to tackle. Last year in the city of Chicago, there were over 200 expressway shootings. Smash and grab crimes at high-end stores is definitely on the rise. What has my eyebrow raised the most are the murders being committed by juveniles. Because guns are making its way into the wrong hands, mothers are losing their babies all over this country daily. Even more sad is that the numbers being reported doesn't include all other murders that have taken place, nor does it include that which has not been proven in courts. There are many other murders that have yet to be solved. At this time, I'm unable to give the stats for 2021 because to my knowledge, they are not yet available. But I'd be interested in seeing what those numbers are. This wasn't something parents had to be concerned about during the era in which I grew up. We were free to be children. Were things perfect? Absolutely not. But there were things in place that allowed us to grow and to flourish despite the imperfections. In fact, there was never a major concern for parents when children went running to the store to go buy candy or play with the neighborhood kids. And 2, children can walk down the street or sit on the porch without it resulting in them losing their lives. But over the years, there has been a dramatic shift in being able to enjoy these simple pleasures in life. Why is this? And this isn't just happening in Chicago, it's occurring in cities across the globe. Now, we can certainly attribute the change to the onset of violence, but why is there so much violence arising in this nation? Our children are becoming more and more destructive, and there seems to be very little regard for life. And so I ask the question, America, what's really going on? We as a society do not have the luxury of closing our eyes to what's happening around us in hopes that things will change on its own or that these violent attacks will not make its way to our door. I hope that at the end of this presentation, you too will be vexed by what you see happening around you, and that you will be ready to do whatever is necessary to help facilitate change, because it's time. It's time. I also trust that in highlighting this information, it will prompt some sort of change in how we navigate this thing called motherhood. I particularly want to have this conversation with young mothers, for mothering, we know, is one of the most difficult jobs in the world, if not the most difficult job on the face of this planet. And while we know children don't come with specific manuals on how to mother them, we can certainly learn from the past as well as the mistakes of others. And so as I begin this dialogue, I pray that you will not only see how important you are as a mother, but that you will also be persuaded to stay the course. You are so vital in shaping our children and what is happening in the world around us. Some of what is said during these segments may not necessarily feel comfortable to hear. It may seem at times like I'm coming for you. I assure you that is not my intent. But with the growing acts of disrespect and vicious and violent attacks, more importantly, these incidents where children are freely taking the lives of others, we have got to stand up as mothers and take reign. My desire is to see us come together to determine what we can do to overcome the obstacles faced in this important role as mothers, as parents, and as leaders in the community. To get to the root of what I believe is behind some of the problems we're facing in this nation with regards to our children, I want to take a step back. Allow me to take you on the journey of what led me here. Now, it may seem like I'm detouring a bit off topic, but believe you me, I'm going somewhere with this, so please bear with me. I believe the journey of what brought me to my conclusion is just as equally important because it helped me to rule out some things. Yet it also allowed me to address some things along the way. So now, if you will, let's go back to the birthing place. It has been said that babies can feel what their mothers feel while they are in the womb. If this is so, then when a mother is angry, could her emotions and feelings be why some of these children are behaving so violently? For the most part, having a baby can be a very joyful experience. However, for some mothers, that isn't necessarily the case. Believe it or not, this experience occurs more often than we know. In fact, according to the Mayo Clinic, 20% of mothers struggle to bond with their babies. It can occur during pregnancy or after birth. In hearing this information, there wasn't necessarily one thing that clarified why this occurs. Studies just simply indicate that there is a shift in hormones and that the condition may last for about a year. While that may be true, I can't say that answer fully satisfied me as to why there is such a strong disconnect. So I did a little digging. When I began to examine some relationship that parents have with their children, it seems some mothers never really bond with them even after the time span in which doctors say this condition should last. Although I know that postpartum depression is real, I yet somehow found it difficult to understand how is it that a mother could have problems bonding with something she's birthed, all because hormones are fluctuating. I couldn't help but to wonder if it's more than just hormones. What if these emotions are because of a combination of other things? My journey to gaining some sort of understanding in this matter all started well over 30 years ago after I came across an article on PPD. During my childbearing years, this wasn't a subject that was talked about much, but definitely one that needed to be addressed. While I initially set out to understand why it was used as a defense in some cases when mothers took the lives of their babies, and in other cases, it wasn't even a consideration, today I am more concerned with whether or not there is a direct correlation to a mother's inability to bond with her child to the behavior and actions of some of these children today. So that we can better understand what it's like for those who suffer from this illness, I want you to meet a woman who suffered from postpartum depression with all 3 of her children. Her story coming up when we return from break. Gunshots ringing out. The sound of motors revving. Tires screeching as it flees the scene. These are the sounds riddling many of our neighborhoods. Why is this? What would cause a child to pick up a gun and without hesitation use deadly force with no remorse or regards for human life? I'm Lynn Pat Britten, author and producer of the stage play Mama's Place. After raising children of my own and spending years in the classroom and counseling many students, I believe I have now unearthed what's behind all these acts of violence across our cities and all across this nation. I share this and more in my latest book entitled America, What's Really Going On? This compilation includes my personal journey and struggles as a mother, along with testimonies from those who experienced some of the very same issues. For more information or to get your copy, go to www.divinitybookpress.com. If you know of anyone, especially a young struggling mother or a family member or friend or coworker or even a neighbor who can benefit from some words of encouragement and inspiration as they maneuver this fight to raise children, I implore you to share this information. In the meantime, please know that I'm doing all I can to not only educate our children, but to also persuade them to turn from the violence and to live a more positive, purpose-filled life. I'm Lynn Pat Britten. Peace and blessings to you and yours. Joining me is a woman I've known for over 25 years. And in all the years I've known her, I would have never guessed that she suffered with this condition called postpartum depression. Please welcome my guest, Miss Latonya McGeechan. Hi, Latonya. How is it going?
It's been wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. No, I wanted my readers to understand more about this condition, postpartum depression. So I've written a book entitled America, What's Really Going On? And I cover some things in it. And in the process of writing this book, I learned that men also can suffer from this disease. No one is exempt. And so I wanted people to understand that just in our everyday living, how this can really affect us. So if you will, share with my audience how you suffered with postpartum depression. What was your experience?
Well, I experienced postpartum depression with all three of my children.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Each of them were different experience, especially by me being, 24, just had my first daughter. I wasn't too familiar with postpartum depression.
Okay.
So after having her, I experienced major headaches.
Okay.
And the doctor says from the epidural, which they also said that is also part of postpartum because I had a reaction from the epidural.
Okay.
And also they gave me potassium as well, which is an artificial hormone that they give you to induce labor. And usually our body women produces that hormone anyway, because it's like a bonding type of hormone for a mother and the newborn child. But by me getting it artificially, that also contributes to postpartum as well.
I see.
So bring her home. I didn't have a disconnect. I mean, I loved her, breastfed her and everything because I wanted that bonding. But I experienced some type of, I don't know if it's called like a illusion type of things, okay, where I felt like I lost her. People, wow. Yeah, I put her in a crib. I would come back and check on her. I didn't see her.
Wow. It wasn't that you lost your physical vision. You just could not.
I could not see her.
So I'm going to stop you right there. So what I've learned is there's certain levels of postpartum depression. Baby blues, and sometimes people intertwine those two terms. Baby blues is something that most mothers do suffer. Only 20% of women who have given birth to babies will suffer postpartum depression, or they'll suffer severe psychosis. With baby blues, it's just something most mothers are just tired and that's a normal thing. When you have given birth, you've just actually pushed out of your body a new life.
Exactly.
And that requires a lot of strength, a lot of energy. And some women go through anywhere between 4 or 5 hours of labor on up to 48 hours of labor. And so by the time you have brought forth this life, you're just exhausted. So and then after bringing the baby home, you're dealing with getting up and down in the middle of the night, feeding the baby, cleaning the baby. So there's a lot that goes on when you have birthed a child. So getting back to baby blues only lasts for about 2 weeks. However, with postpartum depression, it can last anywhere between a month to up to 2 years. Some say a year, and it depends on the researcher, but it can last up to, we know, over a year time.
Yes.
So, and so it sounds like you actually experienced severe postpartum depression, or what they call psychosis.
Yes,
So
I did.
tell us a little bit more about what happened during that time for you.
During that time, it really caused a, I don't know what, by me not being familiar with PPD,
Okay.
it kind of like threw me for a loop. I mean, of course, you always heard about postpartum depression, but it was I'm not going to experience that. It really threw me for a loop because it got me into a sunken place. It got me to a place where I felt like I'm not being the best mom.
Okay.
I feel like I don't have a grasp on being this nurturer.
Okay.
Heck, I lost my child. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what if I get to the point where I just place her somewhere else in the house, I'm not gonna be able to find her.
Gotcha.
So it got to really a really dark space for me.
Wow. And so I myself as well actually suffered postpartum depression. And like you, as a new mother in my 20s, I knew nothing about postpartum depression. And back in the 80s, this was not a subject that was actually discussed much. So I can understand. And when you don't have the information that you need to actually be able to deal with what it is you are experiencing, then you are thrown for a loop. You really don't know what to do, and you don't know who to reach out to. It's embarrassing because we are supposed to be the nurturers. We're moms. So everybody, and people look at you and expect you to be perfect, even though this is your first time, having a baby. And though you may have mom at your side, once again, postpartum depression is not something that's talked about.
Exactly.
So of course, now you're feeling the shame and the guilt of not being able to bond with the baby. Now with my first one, I immediately had this connection. She didn't have to do anything to be loved from me. I just felt this openness from my heart. I immediately loved her and was drawn to her, and it felt this instant love, this emotional, just strength just came from somewhere. But unfortunately, when I had my second and third child, there was such a strong disconnect that it made me feel like, oh my God, what is going on? And I even started questioning, God, what are you telling me? Are you giving me hints that something is going to happen to this child, or are they going to do something to me? Why am I feeling this dark feeling and such a strong disconnect? It was nothing in comparison to my first child. And so now I'm really feeling like, God, something's wrong with me. What's wrong with me? Why can't I love this child? And so, of course, it takes you to a place of, I'm not fit to be a mom. And particularly when I would watch shows like Oprah, when I would hear mothers say, I love all my children. I love them all the same. And I'm saying, I don't feel that way, and so, and now it makes you feel even worse. And so you're questioning everything about you as a person, everything about you as a mom. So it does take you to that place where you are not feeling worthy of even being a mom. But you also shared with me what it was like with your second and as well as your third child.
Yes.
Please share with my audience what it was like for you with your second child.
Now, the second child, the postpartum was different. I think I was more exhausted. My second child required more from me. Not only having a daughter, my oldest one who's just becoming a toddler, and then I have another child.
So how many years, or what was the time frame?
3 years apart.
3 years apart.
3 years apart. So it felt like it was exhausted. I was very, very exhausted. And my second child required more. She was colic, she required more attention, and come to find out certain foods she couldn't eat, milk she couldn't eat, even though I was breastfeeding, how sometimes you do. When I went back to work, of course, I gave her some formula, couldn't do certain formula because she was building allergies and everything. She wouldn't sleep well at night. So she required more from me.
Okay.
So I was exhausted. So I really felt like harming her at one point, but God is good.
Yes.
Because it snapped me right back out of it, and
you don't have to justify what you were experiencing. It is what it is. And this is what I'm trying to get people to understand. Thankfully, there are more of us who are able to overcome this thing than others. And next week, I'm going to have a guest come on whose mother who tried to take his life, not on one occasion, not twice, but on multiple occasions. So I do understand where you're coming from. And once again, we do feel like, oh my God, I can't believe that, I've done this as a human being. Right. But this is what I'm trying to get the audience to understand. Postpartum depression is no joke. First of all, being a mother is no joke. But then when you add all these other things that is going on in your body, and the fact that you just had something that was once in you, attached to you, and now that thing is no longer there, your body does go through a period of adjustment, and hormones are raging. And of course, with those hormones raging, it seems like, Lord, I'm never going to get myself together. And then you're looking at the fact that I'm mom. If I don't do my job as mother, who else is going to be there for this child? So you're battling with so many emotions as well as just the thoughts that go through.
Exactly.
But yeah, you shared with me that you did you were so exhausted. And people know when you are tired, please, sleep deprivation alone. And it can take you to a point of, oh my God, I can't deal with this anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think you go ahead and finish sharing with us. I don't want to tell your story. I want you to be able to tell your story. So yes, go ahead and share with the audience.
I always kept her, in a bassinet next to my bed. Okay. Because, she wouldn't sleep well and everything. Okay. And so it was to the point where she just cried and cried and cried and cried. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I was like, she needs to stop crying. Because if she doesn't stop crying, I'm going to drive myself crazy. Or she going to drive me crazy. Mm-hmm. So in the bedroom was a window right next to where my bed is, in the bassinet, and then there's a window. I really felt like picking her up and throwing her through the window because she just wouldn't stop crying. Mm-hmm. She just wouldn't stop. And then, of course, I had to really change my thought process in a matter of seconds.
Wow. So what do you think contributed to being able to get you from harming your baby to not harming your child? What was it? Was it something spiritually within you, your upbringing? What brought you to the point of not being able to harm this child?
I think the first and foremost is spiritually within me. Okay. I do believe that, God, kind of like was there and was like, nope, you're not going to harm her. Mm-hmm. We're going to take this thought out of your head at this moment. Mm-hmm. And also, by seeing my mom and my grandparents and everything and seeing how nurturing everything are and how they have multiple children. Okay. And how it was like, even though, like you just mentioned, this is something that's never really talked about. Right. And they probably went through it too, but they overcame it. Right. They came through it. Right. So a lot of thoughts came in my mind to actually, then I started thinking about, okay, you might wake up in the morning, locked up in jail or something. So a lot of thoughts to bring me out. Reality had to sit in. And then I started actually meditating. Therefore, after that, and say, this is only temporary. It's only temporary. So that kind of like got me through her stages of getting myself out of
that frame of mind.
Okay. It's only temporary. She gets older. She's not always going to be like that. So I had to change my way of thinking. Your mindset. My mindset, yes.
Okay. So what was it like with your third child?
My third child was totally different than the other two. The second one, I had my second one natural. Okay. No epidural, no anything, and no potassium, nothing. Now with my third one, before I even went into labor, I want to say maybe like the second trimester when I was pregnant, I was feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm pregnant again. Okay. Am I ready to have this child? Okay. Oh my goodness, then pretty much through the pregnancy, it wasn't like with the other two, oh, I'm so excited, I'm having two babies. But with the third one, it was like, oh my goodness.
Now you were married.
Yes.
You were married so this is your third child. And so was this a planned child? No,
it wasn't a planned child, but all my kids are 3 years apart.
Wow.
So, so then, you know, think about it. After I'm just having, after I have my second child, after, she turned 2, and then all of a sudden, I'm pregnant again, getting ready to get pregnant again. So my body really never had a break.
Okay.
So then I got to the point where I was feeling more depressed even being pregnant with him. Until one day, I think I was in my third trimester. I think maybe probably 8 months. And I remember staying in the kitchen and the Lord said, this is going to be your son. And one day he's going to save your life.
Now, did you know, had the doctors revealed to you what the gender of the baby was before God spoke, or before you heard the voice of God say something to you?
It has not been revealed yet.
Hadn't been revealed yet. Wow.
It has not been revealed yet.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay. So I was like, thank you, Lord. So it kind of like got me over the hump. I was still feeling like, oh, gotta have this, I'm gonna have this baby. I'm really not ready for another child. And then when I had him, I didn't have that bonding.
Wow.
With him.
Wow.
So it was a total disconnect. I didn't connect with my son not until he got sick. He was 2 weeks old.
Okay.
He ended up getting sick, built a fever, because I wasn't feeling good. So he must have got what I got.
Okay.
Took him to the hospital. Because they were like, okay, we gotta give him a spinal tap. A baby this little shouldn't have a fever. Something's wrong.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so something's wrong. So during that period, that's when I was like, because my husband was out of town at that time. So I had to be at the hospital every day in and day night with this child. So that, I think that fear, that scared of me, like feeling like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my baby, pulled me more attached to him. But I had that disconnect during when I was pregnant.
During the pregnancy and as well as after the pregnancy.
After the pregnancy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what is your relationship like with your children now?
Actually, we have such good relationships now.
I know firsthand, because I've been in the presence of you and your children, and I love the relationship you have. And even though you suffered severely with your second child, psychosis, it seems to me the bonding is even stronger there. But you've mentioned to me that with your son, even though you weren't necessarily trying to have this child, your bond with him is even strong. This is the child that always comes and makes sure that mom is okay.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
He makes sure till this day, he is 20 now.
Wow. So this is well over 20 years ago. These things were going on.
Exactly.
So this is something, and I want my audience to understand, this is something that you can overcome. It doesn't stay with you. And I sincerely do believe that it's our relationship with God that helps us through a lot of our conditions. I know people make a lot of fun of black folk and God and church and everything instead of going to get, help mentally. Postpartum depression, it's mentally because of the hormones that are raging in your body. There's just certain things that go on. But next week, I want to talk about how this hormone can severely affect women to the point and it's just my belief, but I'm going to have someone come on to share with us as well to help us to understand mentally what's going on with some women even before having or bearing children, because I think that also has a lot of weight into why some women may actually take the lives of their baby. And Andrea Yates is one of them. And I'll, talk a little bit more about her later in the show before introducing my guest, who's a doctor and actually specializes in mental illness as well as postpartum depression. So I thank you for coming on the show. This has really been enlightening. There were several things that you said that, I didn't even know. I had no clue that when you're given an epidural or either the medicine that induces labor, I had no clue that it has that much effect on the body. And that's something that doctors don't make known to us as well. And I think that they're doing their patients a disservice by not sharing that information, because if women knew that, then, we would have the option on whether or not to even allow them to inject us with those hormones. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I truly appreciate you coming on board. This has really been a lot of fun and very enlightening.
Thank you so very much. And thank you for allowing me to share my experience. All right.
I want you to imagine a world. Imagine where our youth come together and collaborate on something meaningful, productive, and positive. Imagine where they come together and they're focused and dedicated to their careers. And they encourage their peers to excel. You think great imagination, right? Well, I say, welcome to the Stroke of Genius Performance Arts Center, where our youth make a difference in the world around them, and they're excited about their future. This is the place where youth learn to be a solution rather than the problem. They encourage their peers and respect those in authority over them. In this Performing Arts Center, they will learn to use their creative skills to channel negative energy into positive solution through music, theater, film, and television. They will learn that hard work pays off in more ways than one. In the end, they will have something to give back to society and be proud to have done so. For as many as we can, let's get them off the street and keep them in school and give them something positive like the Stroke of Genius Performance Arts Center. Let's give them something that they can be proud of and one that will give them the platform to be the creative geniuses we know they can be. We never know what lie in those great minds.
During my investigation, I spoke with many women who struggled with postpartum depression. I even took a deep look at what I went through personally after having had children, because I too had a moment whereby I struggled to bond with my last two children. After carefully examining what happens with women who suffer from this illness, I believe I've been able to safely rule out postpartum depression as having any long-term effects on children and their behavior. I simply couldn't substantiate it. However, I want to hear from you. What do you think is contributing to children becoming so violent? And what do you think we can do to change this narrative? Hopefully you will join me in a live conversation about this matter when I present a town hall meet. That information will be coming soon. Now, while I did not see a direct correlation in any of the cases whereby I spoke with mothers who endured postpartum depression, my next story landed me on an entirely different course. Coming up next time is a gentleman whose mother tried to not once, not twice, but on multiple occasions take his life. Here's a sneak preview.
Well, I, from a very early age, did not have a relationship with my mother. And I found out at 6 months, she had given me to my grandmother. You know, over the course of the years, you hear conversation, but it ultimately came down when I got to be around 26, when I learned that she had tried to kill me.
Before I go, I want to thank Miss Latonya McEachin for sharing her story. I especially want to thank you for tuning in. Meantime, please weigh in, America. What do you think is really going on with the state of our children? Are what we're doing as a nation contributing to what's going on? What are we doing as parents to help resolve these issues? Feel free to post your comments. I look forward to them. Or you may email me at apbritton80@gmail.com. To purchase your copy of America, What's Really Going On, or the Mama's Place series, please go to www.divinitybookpress.com. If you know of a young mother who may need a little encouragement in her journey as she nurtures a little one, please feel free to purchase a copy as a gift. To get notices of upcoming videos, please register on my page. Also, if you enjoyed this piece, please share the link. Until next time, peace and blessings to you and yours.
Hey girl, what's up?
Hey, let's talk about it. Can we please talk about it? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Can we please talk about it? Let's talk about it.